Hello, I am the Unboxed Gamer, and thank you for joining me today with my Overwatch character overview. This video may be a bit long, and I may do some chopping in the future. It's not easy with these boxy flaps though, kind of hard. But, if you would like to stay and go through the characters, down below in the description there's a link to every single character at their starting time, along with their introductions. Please note that this contains information regarding each character, and then also small strategies that they use along the way. This is in no way an advanced guide. This is for basic beginners that want to get more information over their characters, and how they should play them and adjust. If you liked the video, and the animations, please subscribe down below or like the video. If you dislike the video, tell me. How can I improve? How can I do better? These are things that the box needs to know. So sit back, relax, and feel the smooth sensation of my boxy flaps rubbing down your shoulders. Well, figuratively. Starting off the list today is Ana. She has a biotic rifle that has the ability to damage her enemies over time for a few seconds, as well as heal her allies. Her second move is Sleep Dart. This fires a dart that puts her enemies to sleep for several seconds. Her last move is Bionic Grenade. This throws a grenade that heals and increases the healing on her allies, but it also prevents the healing of her enemies, also while damaging them. Her ultimate ability is Nano Boost. This increases an ally's damage and reduces the damage that they take. This is very helpful for helping teammates survive, but also helping to make pushes in game. Next, we have Bastion, which has two weapon modes. Sentry is a turret mode. He is unable to move while in turret mode. He has the ability to self-repair for a few seconds. His reconfigure ability allows him to switch between turret mode and recon. He also has a passive that allows him to take reduced damage while he is transformed. Bastion's ultimate, tank configuration, allows him to be slightly less mobile, but with an extra punch, doing splash damage from a cannon that he uses. Bastion is best used in corners, protected behind tanks, and in choke points. As long as he can get the drop on the opponent, he can do damage. He is practically useless in an up-close battle.
It is good to be back.
Next, we have DOOMFIST. His main range move is Hand Cannon, a short-range spread similar to a shotgun out of his left arm. His next move in a chain sequence is Rising Uppercut. This allows him to knock enemies into the air. His next move is Seismic Slam. He leaps forward and does smash damage to the ground, injuring people within the cone in front of him. His passive ability allows him to get short shields by dealing damage. And his main move is Rocket Punch. It is a charge move where he holds his right fist and launches it towards an enemy. It also knocks them back. If they hit a wall, it does more damage. DOOMFIST's ultimate ability is Meteor Strike. You leap into the air, and after a few moments of moving the circle around your opponents, you slam to the ground, dealing damage to everyone within the circle. DOOMFIST is best used as a flanking character or a surprise attack character. He is easily able to one-shot most enemies around the 200 health marker, and that's just with his Rocket Punch. He is well used when chaining his moves together. Using them separately can help, but they're not as advantageous. I suggest staying back and only wrapping around to the opponents on the other side. Getting behind them primarily would be the best move.
Alright. Game face on. I'm going to own all these noobs.
Next, we have D.VA, which has 2 fusion cannons equipped to her mech. Her second move is Boosters, which allows her to move into the air and use the momentum to carry her forward, as well as push and knock back enemies, as well as damage them. Her third move, Defense Matrix, allows her to put an area of a shield in front of her, which will absorb any bullets, ammo, or most explosives in the game. This is very helpful when you're trying to protect yourself or protect your team. She has a recent updated ability, Micro Missiles, which allows her to launch a barrage of weak but effective missiles at the area she is currently aiming at. D.VA also has the ability to use a light machine gun when she is out of mech. Whenever she takes enough damage that would have usually killed any character, she instead hops out of her mech. At this time, she gets the ability to use the light gun. The light gun, while frail, because she is without her mech, is actually pretty powerful. After a certain time limit or doing enough damage to your enemies, you can call your mech back. Please note that the bar at the bottom of the screen will show your current charge rate towards your mech, not towards your self-destruct. As soon as you hop back in your mech, you'll be able to see the bar for your self-destruct, which is her ultimate. She will eject out of her mech and set its reactor to explode, which will catch anyone not behind cover. This move is especially hated and extremely powerful. It is very efficient at wiping out entire teams if placed correctly. Most people will use the boosters to launch it straight into the air to maximize its effect and wait for it to blow. As soon as you are able to kill someone with your mech, you will instantly get a full charge to get your mech back to use your call mech feature. Once the mech is back, you can continue fighting. D.VA is one of the most excellent tanks in the game. She is very mobile, she has versatility, she is very powerful, if used correctly. She is good at flanking, as well as pushing the front lines. However, getting too far back into the enemy lines will definitely cause you to lose your mech, and probably your character. However, with her ability to call her mech back, she is very hard to kill. As long as you play it safe and smart, D.VA could be a character that most likely will not die during the match.
The dragon and I are one. Honor the fallen. Farewell.
Next is Genji. Genji can use 3 shurikens. His next move is Deflect. Deflect can be used to send projectiles back at their opponents, such as bullets and even sniper rounds. This is extremely handy when you're getting sniped or when you're getting gunned down by a tank. Next is Swift Strike. He will rapidly dash forward, inflicting damage on the enemies he goes through. And if he gets kills, it will reset instantly. His passive ability is Climb. He can climb on walls and can also double jump. This makes him a very high mobility character, which means mastering him with good aim is very difficult. His ultimate ability is Dragon Blade. He pulls the sword out of its sheath. If you're looking at the head, you will do a lot more damage. This is used primarily to do maximum amount of damage to a group of people. Since Genji is a very high mobility character, it is best to stay out of most fights and dive and weave in and out. He is mostly used as someone to flank or sneak up behind the enemy. He is one of the most powerful DPS in the game. However, he is also very frail. His deflect move is used mainly to save him from this issue that he has. As long as you have good aim and good timing with deflect, Genji just might be the character for you. Next is HANZO. HANZO uses the Storm Bow. Most shots with this bow to the head are instant kills. which is why he is a very popular among new and experienced players alike. His second ability is Scatter Arrow. Whenever he uses this move, he will split the arrow into multiple points, impacting multiple enemies or the same enemy, dealing more damage. Next is Sonic Arrow. This reveals an area where the enemies are at. If you shoot this behind a wall, and there's enemies behind it, you will be able to see them through every surface. Keep in mind that this AoE effect has a very short timer. His passive ability is Wall Climb. Just like Genji, his brother, he has the ability to jump and climb up walls. Unfortunately, he does not have the double jump ability, however. HANZO's ultimate ability is Dragon Strike. He launches a deadly dragon spirit in a circular motion towards his enemies. It passes through walls and does damage to all enemies that run in its path. The longer you are in the ultimate, the more damage you are dealt. This is a very powerful and very widely used move. If you intend to play HANZO, try to stay in the back of team fights and pick people off. Look for choke points, flanks, and using his ultimate behind the enemy team is always a good idea, as long as you can get out. His mobility is not as good as Genji's. However, with his wall climb ability, if used correctly, he can be a very valuable asset to the team. He is, however, also a very high accuracy demanding character, just like Genji. And just like Genji, he is also very frail. Experience and good aim will make this character a very, very good character to your selection. Next, we have JUNKRAT, a very good defense character. JUNKRAT uses the frag launcher. He shoots projectile explosives that blow up a few seconds after launching. They also bounce off of walls and around corners, if used correctly. They are also extremely good versus shields. So, if you're looking to counter a tank, this may be your character. His second ability is Concussion Mine. This is used primarily as a way to do two things: to knock yourself back or up into the air, or to throw into the face of a very low health enemy, such as Tracer, Genji, or HANZO. Most of the time, it will result in an instant kill, if detonated close enough. His next move is Steel Trap. Steel Trap is usually placed with a landmine inside. As a side note, whenever you use Steel Trap and someone steps on it, it will alert you, and it will also show you through the wall until it expires, during the time that your opponent is in the trap or are unable to move. His passive ability is Total Mayhem. None of his explosives do damage to him. However, when he dies, he will drop a round of explosives on the ground. This is especially handy if you're fighting a low-level character that walks over you, or you're fighting in a team and you die in the middle of the team fight, doing extra damage to all the enemies in your area. JUNKRAT's ultimate is Riptire. This move has caused a lot of fear and panic from the words that he says right before he launches it. Riptire will leave your character vulnerable and standing still. However, the controls allow you to make the item jump as well as detonate it early. However, if enough damage is dealt to it directly before it reaches its target or before it is detonated, it will blow up and not do damage to your enemies. Keep this in mind if you are spending a long time getting it to your opponent, or if you're not turning quickly around corners with it to surprise your opponents. An effective Riptire is always one that is unseen until the last moment. Next we have LUCIO. His main weapon is Sonic Amplifier, which uses sound waves to launch towards enemies. His first move is Crossfade. This allows LUCIO to switch between two songs that he uses, Healing and Speed Boost. His next ability is Amp It Up. This increases the effectiveness of whichever song he's currently using. His next move is Sound Wave. This creates a short-range burst that will push enemies away from him. This is most effective when used towards high drop-off points where you can throw your enemies off the side of the map. LUCIO's next ability is a passive one, Wall Ride. This allows him to jump onto walls and ride along them. This is especially helpful when getting around your team members or enemies in order to heal or do damage. With his ability to use Crossfade to switch to a high mobility stance, it makes it very useful in team fights, but more effective in pushing than anything, allowing your team members to get from the spawn point back to the fight. LUCIO's ultimate ability is Sound Barrier. This ability creates a temporary shield that drains really quickly. This ability is best used in team fights for pushing or saving your team from certain death. Since it drains quickly, you have to use it at the most opportune time, making this ultimate a little bit more tricky. Please note that with LUCIO, his damage goes down as he uses his healing stance, but when he's using his movement stance he uses more damage, allowing him to do more damage per headshots. As long as you keep moving and heal your teammates, and stay near the back of the fight, LUCIO will be a great addition to heal your team and to help them. LUCIO is most useful when trying to push a payload. Next is McCREE. McCREE uses the Peacekeeper, a revolver. He has two different types of shots with this gun, a single fire or a rapid fire, which expends all the ammo in the barrel. His next move is Combat Roll. This allows him to roll a short distance, but also, as a side note, completely refills his ammo. Next is Flashbang. He stuns an enemy for a few seconds. This is very handy when looking to get a headshot or slowing down very fast enemies. Last is his ultimate, Deadeye. This can be used against every enemy on the other team as long as you're within view of their head. This is an automatic headshot and will kill any enemy. This is primarily used to clear off points or to make pushes in the game. It is most effective when used from behind or flanking around an area that the opponent does not see you. Please remember that McCREE is just like GENJI and HANZO. He cannot take a lot of damage, but he outputs a lot of damage. And just like GENJI and HANZO, he is a very sought after character that is simple to run and hard to master. Remember, when using this character, like the few characters stated before, he is best used when flanking and surprising, and is best not put in the front line of combat.
Amazing!
Next we have Mei. Mei is a fairly simple character to learn, with very good teamwork abilities. Her main weapon is Endothermic Blaster. It has two firing modes. One that allows her to shoot a beam of ice that will freeze opponents over time and deal damage. Her second ability with the weapon is a long-range icicle that has a slight delay and arc, but when headshot, actually does a moderate amount of damage. Mei's next move is Ice Wall. This can be used in a variation of different ways. either to block off entrances, get rid of damage from your opponents, or also to launch you up into the air. Never underestimate the creativity of Mei's Ice Wall. Her next ability is Cryo Freeze. This ability allows her to become invulnerable for a certain amount of time. During that time, she heals herself. This is very handy with good timing in ults, AoE ults, and even during the time where you find yourself not quite in the right spot. This can be very handy, especially in conjunction with the Ice Wall, to save yourself from certain death. Mei's ultimate ability is Blizzard. She tosses a drone that controls weather and freezes a certain area. People stuck in that area will actually be frozen over time, making them very, very vulnerable, and making this a very good move, especially in conjunction with McCREE and Reaper, which would allow a lot of characters to do an extensive amount of damage to the enemy team, if not wipe them completely. While Mei does have a self-healing ability, she is very weak. Use her moves and strategic advantage in order to gain the upper hand with your team and the enemy team. Use her walls to block off team damage, to stop ults, and it can also be used against D.VA's ultimate as well and block off the damage, so please keep that in mind. As of this video, the wall will also stop and actually completely disintegrate some of MOIRA's moves, allowing her to be quite useful when getting rid of the damage ball that she uses.
Heroes never die.
Next we have Mercy, the most sought after healer in the entire game. Mercy's primary weapon, the Caduceus staff, has two abilities. The first allows her to heal allies. The second allows her to give them a power boost. The stream has a pretty good reach, and also, for the most part, hooks onto the person that she is healing or using the staff on currently. She also has the Caduceus blaster, which is very similar to D.VA's gun as well. It does a good chunk of damage and has a high fire rate. This is actually a very good weapon due to Mercy's mobility with being able to slowly descend, as well as link to her comrades and move to them. Her first ability is Guardian Angel. This allows her to fly to an ally that she's able to lock onto, as long as they're not behind a wall. This is very helpful for getting around the map quickly, and also helping her survive and heal others to help them survive. Her next move is Resurrect. This allows her to revive a dead ally. This move is extremely useful and is the reason why Mercy is so sought. Keep in mind that this ability can be interrupted, although it does grant the person being resurrected to almost 3 seconds of ability. This is to help them actually. Next is Angelic Descent. This ability, when used, allows her to fall slowly, allowing her to stay up in the air much longer, which is why she is such a good character to use with PHARAH. Due to PHARAH's ability to shoot into the air, this allows Mercy to stay in the air and give her more damage, and also to keep her safe and heal her. Mercy's passive is Regeneration. She automatically heals over time for a small amount. Mercy's ultimate is Valkyrie. This extends most of her moves' distance, as well as gives her more DPS on her gun, increasing it from 40 meters per second to 90 meters per second, which is a lot farther and a lot faster. If you intend to main Mercy, it is best to stay out of the main fight, stay in the corner, and be very careful. Most people that play Mercy dodge in and out near the back lines, never fully being seen. A good Mercy is one that heals her friends, but is for the most part unseen by enemies. Since she is frail and has a high maneuverability, this is fairly simple to do. However, if you get too close to the enemy, they will target you down. Mercy is the best healer in the game, and she is also sought after by anyone and everyone that is fighting against her. So be warned, there's a bounty on your head. Next is MOIRA. MOIRA has two abilities with her weapon, Biotic Grasp. The first allows her to heal allies that are in front of her. This consumes biotic energy. Her secondary move is how she gets bionic energy. She uses a beam that comes out of the weapon and deals damage to her enemy, while also building her energy and healing herself. This is very helpful and very useful. She has some moderate amount of team diving that she can do, but not much since she has low health. Her next ability is Biotic Orb. She launches an orb that will bounce off of surfaces. It has two options: the ability to be a dark orb and take life from enemies, or a yellow orb which heals and has that effect on your entire team, depending on who's closest. Moira's next ability is Fade. She disappears and moves faster for a few seconds. While in this form, she becomes invulnerable, but she cannot use any of her moves. Her ultimate ability is Coalescence. This fires a beam that does a joint of her Biotic Orb and her Biotic Grasp, which allows her to take health from her enemies and do damage, but also to heal her allies. This makes her one of the most versatile characters for support. If you intend to play Moira, I suggest staying behind your allies or weaving in and out of enemies quickly, as her abilities give her a good amount of DPS, but at the same time gives her healing abilities as well. This is important for her team. Please note that you should choose to be DPS or healer, as you cannot be both unless you have mastered this character.
Hello. My will made real.
Executing pre-combat routines. System health stabilizing. ORISA online.
Next, we have my personal favorite tank of the entire game, ORISA. ORISA's primary weapon is Fusion Driver, which is an automatic weapon and has surprisingly good accuracy at medium range. ORISA's next ability is Protective Barrier. Protective Barrier is a deployable shield that she can throw in front of her. Both sides will deflect enemy rounds and explosives. This is extremely handy when used against ults such as D.VA's ults or other AoE ults. Next, her ability Fortify steps in. Fortify reduces the damage she takes, and she cannot be pulled. This is very handy if you're fighting another ORISA and you do not want to be pulled from her move, or pushed by LUCIO's blast. One of her most versatile moves is Ulti. This launches an orb charge in the direction she fires it. When it gets too close to enemies, it attaches to them with a green line. When pressed again, this move will pull them to the orb. This is very effective for pulling people out of cover, as well as off the edge of maps, as shown in the video. ORISA's ultimate ability is Supercharger. This allows her to deploy an item that will increase damage of all of her allies. This item has a very good range and will automatically attach itself to everyone in the party. This is very good for making pushes or for holding off defense points. ORISA is a very versatile tank. For her versatility, she loses a little bit of health, but other than that, she is a very good tank. She is quite mobile, and is very good at covering different areas. With the ability to deploy shields very quickly, and then to also deploy her ulti ability to pull enemies out of cover, she is an invaluable asset as a tank and also as someone that can help change the tide of battle. If you intend to play ORISA, make sure that you have good map awareness over where to put your shields and try to keep your back to a corner so you're not flanked. Her biggest weakness is the fact that the shield only covers the area in front of itself and from the inside, so she is still vulnerable on her left and right if she is too far back and behind. This makes her especially vulnerable to Reaper and other characters like him.
Goodbye.
Justice reigns from above!
Next is PHARAH. PHARAH uses a rocket launcher. It has good range but slow movement to the point. It also does splash damage, which is very effective for shields and also for hitting groups of people, as well as knocking people off the map if timed correctly. PHARAH's first move is Jump Jet. It has a relatively fast cooldown and will keep you in the air if you know how to use it right. Next is Concussive Blast. This is very helpful for two things. This launches an explosive from her arm, which will push her and anyone else in the area away from that particular spot where the device lands. PHARAH's passive ability is Hover Jets. She uses a gas gauge to hover. As long as this is used correctly in conjunction with Jump Jet, you can stay level at the same height, if not slightly lower, for long periods of time. This is very handy, as she is a very weak character. PHARAH's ultimate ability is Barrage. This launches a continuous volley of missiles in a small area. This is a very powerful move if used correctly. However, when using her ultimate, she is very vulnerable and she cannot move, making her quite the target for snipers or people like HANZO or GENJI. However, this move will also be fatal to anyone that is like HANZO or GENJI with low health. For just a few seconds, they will be killed. If you intend to play PHARAH, I suggest that you stay in the air and practice using your abilities. You also need to get used to the timing it takes for the rockets to land, as well as the distance and the timing associated with it. If used correctly, she can be a valuable asset to the team to take down shields and to also destroy enemies of a weaker caliber. Also, do not forget that PHARAH can damage herself with her rockets, so do not get too close to where the rockets land.
Death from above.
Die, die, die! No one left behind. I am the Reaper.
Next, we have Reaper. Reaper uses two sawed-off shotguns named Hellfire. These do a significant amount of damage up close in a cone shape. They spread out further as you gain distance from your target. Reaper's first move is Shadow Step. This allows him to teleport to a location. While Reaper is using Shadow Step, he is still vulnerable to damage, and stands still. Take note of this so that way you do not teleport in the middle of a hectic area, as it can be fatal. Reaper's next ability is Wraith Form. He moves faster and becomes invulnerable, but he cannot shoot. This is very useful for moving in and out of dangerous situations, or getting closer to your target without dying in the process from the teammates. So it is also useful to dive, but not unless you know exactly how you're going to get out of there. His passive ability is Reaping. Doing damage allows him to heal himself for small amounts. Reaper's ultimate ability is Death Blossom. He damages all nearby enemies in a circle. This is a very handy ability to break team fights, initiate team fights, or just to wipe the enemy team off the map. This is best used either when everyone is low health or when you're behind the opponent. A well-placed Reaper is deadly. While playing as Reaper, make sure that you move along the sidelines and wait for your opportunity to come into the fight. Just standing in the middle of the fight shooting randomly will not help you as Reaper. You may pick up a few kills, but you will not maximize the effectiveness as the character provides. So make sure you do your best to play Reaper how he's meant to be played. That way you can walk away with many kills and a sad enemy team.
Any last words?
Don't worry, my friends. I will be your shield.
Next we have Reinhardt. Reinhardt uses a rocket hammer. It's very powerful against weak opponents and is obviously close range. His first ability is Charge. This allows him to charge forward and smash an enemy against a wall, doing more damage when impacting a wall, and only temporarily stunning an enemy if not onto a wall. This is extremely handy for pushing people out of team fights, as well as people off the map if distanced correctly. However, if you try to push people off the map, most likely you will also be pushed off the map. Next is Fire Strike. Please note that this move will go through shields, so it is very helpful against other tanks. Fire Strike will launch a fiery projectile towards your opponent. His last ability is Barrier Field. Barrier Field deploys a frontal energy barrier. This will deflect almost all damage, but when it breaks, it'll take a couple seconds for it to come off cooldown to use it again. Please keep in mind that you can also look up with this to protect your friends that are behind you or really close to you as well. A good Reinhardt knows when to pull his shield out and when to use it. His ultimate ability is Earth Shatter. He knocks down all enemies that are in front of him in a cone shape. This is perfect for team battles and also for wiping out enemy teams. If paired correctly with McCREE or a Reaper ult, this will actually be beneficial in capturing a point or just completely eliminating the enemy team. Please keep in mind that being a tank, you will need to constantly keep eye on where you're located and where you're moving. You need to have good map awareness and know when you're getting shot.
I have been called. I must answer.
Next is Roadhog. Roadhog has two shot types, a short range weapon spread and a medium range weapon spread. Both of these are particularly useful if used in a crowd or close range. Roadhog's next ability is Chain Hook. This ability will grab onto an enemy and pull them to you, temporarily stunning them for a split second. This is very useful against weak characters, as it creates an opportunity for you to get rid of them quickly. His next move is Take a Breather. This will heal himself and reduce the damage taken for a short time after use. His ultimate ability is Whole Hog. This will damage and knock back enemies that are in front of you in a spread area. This is useful for knocking people off the map and also doing damage to a wide area. Roadhog is one of the best tanks in the game because he can pull enemies to him, and also because he is very powerful. With his self-healing, he is the only tank in the game that can heal himself. Also keep in mind that Roadhog's hook does not work against shields. It will be deflected directly off of it. This is also true for GENJI's ability to deflect. If you intend to play Roadhog, make sure that you stay close to your teammates or near the front and get ready to pull people. The easiest way to do this is to grab someone, pull them into range, and then have your teammates take them down. As long as you learn the chain hook distance, as well as get better with his breather move to heal himself, you will be a very good tank for your team.
Lights out.
Next we have Soldier 76. He uses the automatic heavy pulse rifle. This rifle is well balanced but also does a lot of damage if used correctly. Normally, holding down the fire button will allow the rifle to fire, but it will lose accuracy. If you tap the trigger, however, the accuracy goes up quite a bit, allowing you to get headshots with ease, especially with such a fast firing rifle. It is very handy. His next ability is Sprint. This gives him the ability to run faster while moving forward. There is no real time limit on this, so he can continuously run. This is very handy for getting around enemies as well as escaping. His next ability is Biotic Field. He deploys a field that heals him and his allies. This is very useful if used with your team. You can not only do damage at a good distance, but you can also heal your teammates for a small amount. His next ability is Helix Rockets. This launches a volley of explosive rockets that will knock back enemies. This can also be used to push you up into the air. However, this will damage you, so it is not recommended. His ultimate ability is Tactical Visor. This allows him to aim his weapon at his targets in view to get automatic headshots. This is very similar to McCREE's, but is not an instant kill. You have to have ammunition in the chamber in order to fire. If you run out of your clip, you will stop firing. Soldier 76 can be a very good asset to your team. He is also a very good and balanced DPS. If you would like to learn to play as him, I would suggest staying out of the main fight and shooting into it from a medium to long range, as well as working on your accuracy with the weapon and timing firing. Because if you do hold down the button to fire, you will get a very inaccurate shot. But remember, if you can learn to tap it correctly, you can do a lot of damage very easily. Next is SOMBRA. SOMBRA uses a machine pistol. It is very inaccurate when first using with burst. However, a gentle hand, such as the Saving Soldier, allows you to be more accurate as you tap the trigger instead of holding it. Her next ability is Translocator. This ability is very handy for moving around as well as getting out of fights. It is normally placed on a health pack or near an area where you will be safe if you use it. It does, however, have a cooldown time that once it expires, you will not be able to teleport. Sombra's next ability is Stealth. She becomes invisible and is able to move quickly. Please keep in mind that it takes a few seconds for this move to actually make you invisible. Until then, you will appear as a blurrish character. Her next move is Hack. She uses this ability to stop other opponents from having abilities. During the time that they are hacked, they will be unable to use any of their moves except for melee and normal movement. Please keep in mind that you could also use this on health packs, which will allow you to stop enemies from being able to heal. Her passive ability is Opportunist. This allows her to detect critically injured enemies through walls. That way she can find who she can get to quickly and do her job. Sombra's ultimate ability is EMP. This is a burst move that she uses in an area around herself to hack enemies. It'll destroy shields and barriers around her as well, which is very helpful when pushing a point or when trying to take down a very heavy shield team. Sombra is a very high awareness character. This means that you should be aware of where your allies and your enemies are all the time. You need to make sure that you move around corners quickly and that you also get in and out of fights quickly. Shutting down tanks would be primarily the reason for diving and also for picking off small characters in the back, such as healers or low health enemies.
My condition is improved.
Next, we have Symmetra. She has a photon projector as her main weapon. This weapon has two abilities. A leash ability that increases damage over time, that becomes extremely effective against tanks, and a charge move that allows her to shoot orbs that go through shields and do damage as they travel. Her first move is Sentry Turret. She is able to deploy up to 6 turrets, after placing which they'll have a recharge timer for each turret. In addition to doing damage, they also slow the target, so the more turrets the better, but also placement is key with these devices. If you place turrets incorrectly, they can be a hindrance instead of a help. Her next move is Photon Barrier. This deploys an energy shield that moves slowly in the direction that it is launched, but it is very effective for saving your team. Say for example, Reinhardt's shield breaks, and then you launch this move. It will allow you to at least give Reinhardt the time to recover, to get his shield back. It is also useful for protecting yourself from your flank, or if you're getting attacked from a distance. Symmetra's ultimate is actually split into 2. She has the teleporter and the shield generator. The shield generator deploys a specific amount of armor to every character. I believe it is 75 in a given area. Her teleporter will put a teleporter in the base, so that way wherever you put the teleporter, you can go from the base through the teleporter to that new location. The teleporter has 6 uses, after which it will be destroyed. Keep in mind that during the time that your ultimate is in use, teleporter or shield generator, you will not be able to gain any charge towards your ultimate. But don't be discouraged, her ultimate does charge quickly. The biggest advantage with Symmetra is to be creative. As long as you're creative and you play with her a lot, you will get the experience you need to use her as a character. Make sure to spend your turrets wisely and do not place them all in one spot. For example, if a Junkrat comes by and launches a grenade round at them, they will all be destroyed very quickly, forcing you to recharge.
Everything is awesome!
Next is Torbjorn. Torbjorn's rivet gun has 2 firing modes. One which is a slow firing long range round. The other is a very inaccurate but powerful short range shotgun-like round. His second weapon is Forge Hammer, which is able to damage the enemy for small amounts, or mostly is used for his turret. His next ability is Armor Pack. Whenever killing an enemy, he will be able to get scrap. The scrap will allow him to make armor, as well as upgrade turrets. Next, he has Build Turret ability. The turret starts off at level 1 with a low fire rate. Once you use your hammer on it, it will upgrade it to level 2. The turret does have a level 3 ability. However, the level 3 ability is only able to be used during his ult. His passive is Scrap Collector. I mentioned that earlier. His ultimate ability is Molten Core. This increases the attack speed of his weapon, as well as armor and a temporary upgrade from the turret to level 3 as mentioned prior. Many people make the mistake of thinking only of Torbjorn's turret. When you're playing Torbjorn, your turret should be an afterthought. It should be placed in a choke point or a good vantage point where it can be mostly covered and not destroyed easily, sitting behind a tank or sitting around a corner. However, you should learn to master Torbjorn himself, because his rivet gun is actually quite powerful. He can actually get kills with 2 or 3 headshots with his weapon. Also, if you're unable to get to where your enemies die because you're sitting next to your turret, you'll be unable to pick up the scraps you need for armor packs, and that will devastate the amount of armor that you can give your teammates. So remember, while playing Torbjorn, think of a placement for your turret and focus on your physical placement of your character first and foremost.
Cheers, love!
Next, we have Tracer. Tracer uses pulse pistols. They're short-range automatic weapons. Her next ability is Blink. She has 3 charges to teleport in any direction that she is currently moving. This is useful for dodging left, right, back, and forward, and is very helpful when weaving through enemies. Her last ability is Recall. This ability allows her to travel back in time for a few seconds to her previous location and health. This also restores all of her ammunition. Tracer's ultimate is Pulse Bomb. This is a powerful sticky explosive that will actually damage Tracer if she's too close to it when it goes off. Most will actually charge an opponent, throw it, and then keep dashing in order to get away. Tracer's moves are very simplistic, however she is a very complicated hero to master. because if timed incorrectly you can blink off the side of a cliff. Without your recall you'll certainly die, and also because you can teleport into walls which will stop you from getting away, so it is recommended to be aware of your surroundings, the map, and not to mention being able to track your opponent's movements correctly when you aim. Tracer requires a great deal of aim because of the erratic movement that she goes through. If you cannot aim correctly, or turn correctly to aim at an enemy, then you will not land hits, and at that point, you're just teleporting around waiting to get killed by the enemy team.
You know, the world could always use more heroes.
I've got you in my sights.
Next we have Widowmaker. Widowmaker's main weapon is Widow's Kiss. It has two modes, automatic assault weapon or sniper rifle. Her second move is Grappling Hook. Grappling Hook launches a hook that allows her to attach herself to that ledge and pull herself to it. Next is Venom Mine. Venom Mine sticks to almost any surface. When an enemy gets too close to the area, it unleashes a gas that damages them over time. This is very handy when covering your back, because it will alert you when it's activated. Widowmaker's ultimate ability is Infrasight. This provides her the ability to see through walls to an enemy's location for a short time. Because Widowmaker's assault version is very inaccurate, continue to try to snipe people with her second mode. As long as you get a headshot, this is an instant kill. She is very powerful if used correctly. Make sure that you stay in high ledges and you stay away from enemy teams, because anyone sneaking up behind you can get the drop on you before you can retreat. Next is Winston. Winston is one of the more mobile tanks of the game. His main weapon is Tesla Cannon. This has the ability to use electric cone shapes in front of him, doing damage over time. It also passes through shields and is very useful in that regard. His next ability is Jump Pack. He leaps forward into the air, and when he lands, if he's near an enemy, he will do damage to them. This is very handy for getting across the map quickly or getting in front of your team so you can help them. His next ability is Barrier Projector. This puts an item on the ground and summons a shield around it. The shield itself will not last too long under fire, but it is a 360-degree orb that will be able to stop any fire from coming in. This is very useful when pushing checkpoints, as well as protecting your team, or also just giving other tanks the time they need in order to get their shields. Winston's ultimate ability is Primal Rage. He gains immense health, and he can leap a lot quicker than normal. However, when using his ultimate, he can only use melee punches. He cannot use his weapon while he is enraged. Winston is most useful in the front of battle or in the middle of his team, putting down the protective barrier. He is also very useful using it on the payload, so that way it moves with the payload, creating an orb for protection. Please keep in mind that Winston is not as beefy as other tanks. He is more of a distraction type character when used correctly.
We are Overwatch.
A glimpse of mastery.
Next we have one of my favorite characters, ZENYATTA. ZENYATTA has two types of projectiles that he can use. The first is launching single rounds. The second is charging and launching multiples at the same time. His first ability is Orb of Discord. This launches the orb at an enemy and increases the damage that they take. You'll notate it by a purple orb hovering above their head. His next ability is Orb of Harmony. This launches an orb at an ally and heals them. Just like the Orb of Discord, the orb will stay on the character as long as they are within a certain distance to you. Zenyatta's ultimate is Transcendence. He becomes invulnerable and moves faster, and he heals all nearby allies. This is good if your team is within an ult that they may lose their lives from, or to start a push. Zenyatta is one of the few supports in the game that can also do a decent amount of damage. With the help of his Discord and the ability to get headshots, he can actually take down large enemies very quickly if used correctly. He is very versatile, but very slow, and also has a very low health amount. Keep in mind that his health does include a shield, which, if not pressed too far, will regenerate, allowing him to have that small shield the next time he is damaged. Also, the orbs will not work on anyone behind a wall. They need to be within view and within range. Also, you need to have orbs available for use at that time.
Check out this gun.
Last, we have ZARYA. She has a particle cannon as her main weapon. It shoots a beam or energy grenades that also knock back opponents. Her first ability is Particle Barrier. This creates a barrier around herself that absorbs damage and times out very fast. Her second ability is Projected Barrier. It counts the same, but for her ally. Her passive is Energy. Whenever she blocks damage with her barriers, her cannon damage increases. Her ultimate is Graviton Surge. This launches a ball of energy and will pull all enemies within a certain range into it. This is very handy if you're trying to get a lot of kills with Reaper or with anyone that does damage within a small range but can hit all opponents. This ability is used primarily for team kills or for pulling people off the map. ZARYA's damage can be a little bit more than some tanks. However, her shields last a very low amount, and her damage stacking ability is really the only reason that you should play her. She is a very strong character to play if timed correctly, and is invaluable if you know how to use her shields correctly. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me. If you like this video, please like, comment, or subscribe. Tell me what I did right, tell me what I did wrong. It is the first actual full video I have done, and it did take me a little bit, about a week, to get this completed. So if you guys could please just show your support, subscribe if you want to see more content. I'm more than happy to do other video games that I may have in the future. So please let me know what you would like in the comment section below, and I'll see you all later with my boxy goodness. And also, as a final note, if you want me to keep the box voice, then I would suggest leave a comment below, let me know. If not, I am debating on just approaching things as I am right now. So that way it's a little bit more lively, a little bit more goofy. This video was for the most part pretty monotone because it's so long. And if anyone's talked for a long time, they know that that's how that works. After a while, you just kind of level out. So thank you guys. And a huge note to Bloody Athena, which told me to actually make this video. Without her help, I would have been unable to do all of this. So thank you so much for helping me and being a good friend when I needed you to sit there and die a whole lot.
You refuse to learn.